Now, I promised you I would talk about dating, and I would talk about the distinction between dating for marriage versus dating for short-term recreational relationships. Short-term recreational relationships usually have a lifespan of maybe 3 to 6 months. And they always, it's pretty much a male game. It's a man's game. However, these days in modern or more in westernized countries, I'll put it that way, women are playing the men's dating game. And so, ladies, I want to point out that men are much better at this than you will be because they have all the time in the world. Whereas for ladies, you have a limited amount of time to play this game. And for a number of reasons, both cultural and biological and emotional, you will not be on the same playing field as men will be. Here's some of the parameters of that game that you will run up against, both as men and as women, okay? A short-term recreational relationship fulfills several positive things for both men and women, and that is that it is an opportunity for you to get used to, after having passed through childhood and adolescence, maybe you haven't had a lot of exposure to opposite sex relationships in which there would be some natural sexual charge or sensual charge. Now, by sexual, I mean the exchange of masculine and feminine energy, which is totally natural, totally innocent, and actually very healthy to do. So if you have some guilt around that, if your religion or culture or parents or anybody has imposed some kind of a guilty feeling upon you for having those feelings, you'll have to do some work on yourself to free yourself of those guilty feelings, because as far as I'm concerned, there's nothing more natural than the healthy exchange of masculine and feminine energy, and that happens in a number of ways. The first of those ways is through the eyes. Yes? The very first thing that people usually do. Nowadays, people are getting connected on the internet. So sometimes you're connected with somebody and your only visual cue is a photo that they've posted. And by now, if you've ever checked any of those out, you find out that the photograph that are posted of people is they usually look about 10 times better in the photograph than they actually do in real life. It's rare to find a person online that looks like their photograph, or as good as or better than their photograph. So you just need to take that for granted, that however they look in the photograph, they're not going to look that good in real life for the most part. So our first visual cue is how somebody looks. Now, it kind of stops right there if you're dating online or if you're encountering somebody online, because 90% of communication is nonverbal. Most of our communication is happening through our eyes. Some of it's happening through our ears. But what really sticks what really registers in our nervous system, in our anatomy, is what we feel when we see somebody, when we see something. And how we communicate is through all types of visual cues. There's like over 600 little micro muscles around the eyes and in the face that communicate far more than words could ever communicate. So, and unless you're in the presence of another human being, seeing them as they speak, seeing them as they smile, as they listen, then you're not getting who the person is on a very real level. You're missing out. If your communication is limited to what you can hear on the phone, well, almost anybody can cleverly disguise their intentions with their voice. Pretty easy to do. You do it, and so do they. So people don't necessarily communicate their true intentions either with their words or with how they use their voice. However, it's pretty hard to hide who you truly are, and why would you? If the purpose of your relationship was to get related, why would you want to disguise yourself in dating? I think that the point of dating is to get to know other human beings, to get to know somebody from the opposite sex, to feel those feelings, and to learn to establish boundaries, social boundaries, sexual boundaries, financial boundaries, physical boundaries, you know. How much touching is okay? Is holding hands good? Is a kiss on the cheek okay? Or the other kinds of kisses, all the different kinds of very even passionate kisses? Can you deal with that and the energy that that releases, and yet maintain certain boundaries that are your boundaries to have and to maintain? So dating for fun is about honing those skills. It's about establishing those boundaries. It's about learning to deal with the energy of another person and know who you are and to maintain that. And, you know, are there some rules? I would say that the rules have to do with your society, where you live. You know, my advice to people living in a Muslim country, for example, would not be the same as my advice to people living in another country that had different rules and different societal expectations, you see. So I'm only going to talk about the ones that I know about, which is, you know, I grew up in a Western culture, and I live in a Western culture, so I'm going to talk about that. And so from wherever you are watching in the world, and whatever your social, religious, cultural background is, I challenge you to map what I'm going to say onto your own life, onto your own lifestyle, onto your own culture. Obviously, some of the things that I might suggest may not apply in your particular circumstance, so that's up to you to try that on and see what works for you, okay? What I'm sharing with you is not rules about how to do things. It is simply from my own experience, and my experience is not just my personal experience, but my experience from working with literally thousands of people over a long period of time. So it's not just anybody's experience. And so let's start with some of the things that men might want to pay attention to. Men, if you're dating, and you're dating for a short-term recreational relationship, or if you're dating for marriage, the rules are pretty much the same. And I said I wasn't going to call them rules, so the guidelines, if you will, are pretty much the same. Be a gentleman. Be on time. This shows responsibility, and it shows integrity, and women are attracted to integrity and responsibility. Women want to be around men that have integrity and that are responsible. And so show some responsibility, show some adulthood by showing up on time, even a little bit early, and be there when you said you would be there. Don't call and say, oh, I'm running late, or I'm caught in traffic, or all the stuff that men are always doing, or simply showing up without announcing that you're going to be late. So, because all it takes is for you to be even 1 minute late, and she's already started thinking something about you, and it's not going to be empowering. It's not going to put you in your best position to get more related. So, show on time. Do things that gentlemen do that they have always done. Open the door, pull out the chair, stand up when she approaches or leaves the table where you're dining, or you know, walk her to the car or to the door. Don't let her leave, if she says, okay, I'm going to my car or whatever, you walk her to the car, show protection, be a gentleman. This just shows good manners. But it also shows that as a man, you're taking responsibility for the well-being, not only of yourself, but of her well-being, and it is a way of showing not only caring and protection, but showing that you are a man of honor, okay? So take care of the woman. She needs to feel safe, okay? She needs to feel safe around you, but she also needs to feel safe when you're there, like there's nobody else that can bother her or whatever. As men, we forget. Men, if I were to ask most of the men, if the men watching this show, when was the last time you were afraid for your personal safety in an everyday situation, almost no man would say, I have. It's like, for the most part, we don't feel afraid going to the car, getting in the elevator, or going out at night or whatever. We feel pretty much in control of our environment, even if you're not a big, strong guy or something. You just don't go around being afraid for the most part. But women feel afraid a lot of the time. They do feel afraid in a parking lot. They do feel afraid out at night. So please take care of them. They'll never tell you they feel afraid, but please take care of them and show them that you value them. When it comes to taking a woman out for dinner or to a movie or to a play, pay the bill. Having a woman in your life is a luxury. If you can't afford to take a woman out and pay the bill, then you can't afford to have a woman in your life anyhow. So you should be concentrating on building wealth. You should be concentrating on building a career. You should be concentrating on building your business or getting better at your job or increasing your skills so that you can afford a woman. There's a time in every man's life where you have to concentrate and begin to build up enough resources in order to be able to afford a high-quality woman in your life. A high-quality woman is a luxury. It requires time and money and effort and attention to have a fine woman in your life. And so if you want a fine woman in your life, sorry, you need to be able to afford it. And so you need to be able to show her that you can afford it by never letting her pay the bill. Okay, maybe on your birthday or something like that, as she says, look, I really insist, I would love to, buy dinner or give you a gift or something like that. Okay, maybe every now and then. But the ratio should be, 5 to 1, something like that. So that's it, pay the bill. Keep your attention on her when you're out with her, gentlemen. Keep your attention on her. Don't let your eyes wander all over the place and look at every girl that walks by. I know you're attracted to women and anything that's shiny or that moves or that has the right curves or that that shakes in a certain way. I know, I'm a guy, I know that your attention is drawn by those things, okay? However, your value to a woman and therefore to society, to culture, to the future generations, your value hinges upon your ability to stay focused on what's important and what's at hand. And when you've taken a woman out to dinner or out for an evening, when you're dating, whether it's being for fun and recreation, hey, we're just going to go to a movie and have a good time, or whether it be to look into the possibility of a long-term committed relationship, you need to learn to focus your attention and keep it completely on her. It's part of her needing to feel safe and needing to feel valued, but the truth is, if you're interested in a lifelong relationship, she especially needs to feel that she's the only one. Women need to feel that they're the only one, that they're the most important one. Sure, the world is full of beautiful women and attractive women, but for that moment, during that time, she needs to feel that she has 100% of your attention. That means don't bring your cell phone, put it away, don't text, don't call, don't take a call, don't let your eyes wander all over the place, don't engage in conversation with other women. Anything that would have her feel that she is less valued, that she's less important, then gentlemen, you've failed the test for the evening. All right, so dating, since we're talking about dating, is about honing those skills, developing your ability. Did I say that you come with those abilities? No, those abilities for a man are learned and practiced and mastered. And so being a gentleman does not come naturally to us necessarily. If it does, it's because you learned it from your older, wiser men in your environment. You've had a mentor, somebody's shown you the way to behave properly with a lady. And hopefully you didn't learn that from your mother, but you learned it from a man that knew how to treat a woman. So keep your attention on her. She needs to feel like she's the only one. And the other thing that I would say, lastly on men, I could go on and on about giving you tips and techniques about dating women. All right? And I do that in a workshop called the Honor, Integrity, and Mastery Workshop, which I teach for men. And it's not just about dating, but it's about understanding women, but it's about being the best man you could possibly be by getting grounded in your own honor and your own integrity, such that this is a natural expression for you, not just something you took some notes about and tried to practice and remember and learn how to do, but a natural, full expression of you as a gentleman, as a human being, both as a man in society, but as a man amongst men as well. So lastly, I would say, treat service people well. If there's a valet, if there's a waiter at the table, if there's anybody who is taking care of you and your date, you're in charge of making sure those people feel respected, that they're well taken care of. Those people are not necessarily well paid, and to tell you the truth, they're not necessarily always very good at their job, are they? And mostly, if they're not good at their job, it's usually because people don't appreciate them, don't thank them, don't tip them, or talk disrespectfully to them as if they're talking down to an inferior. Because a person is serving you doesn't mean they're inferior to you. That's their job in life right now, okay? And your job as a gentleman is to treat them well. And in doing so, you're demonstrating that you perhaps may have the ability to be a father or a teacher or a spiritual leader in your family. Because if you do choose to have a long-term committed relationship with a woman, then it's likely that you will be a father. And it's likely that you will be called upon to provide leadership in a family where there are conflicts, where there are all sorts of challenges. And in that respect, you'll need to have some wisdom, and you'll need to have some self-control, and you'll need to learn how to respect people even when they're acting disrespectfully. So start by, when you're on a date, treat the service people well and with respect and honor, and show that you're an honorable person. And this will go a long ways towards endearing you with the ladies as well. Okay, so don't just do it for show. Do it because it's who you are and it's the right way to be. Okay, ladies, you wanted some tips for dating. Now, in the dating game, I already said that it's not necessarily an equal game, because if you're a man and you have any kind of good looks at all, even if you're just an average Joe, if you have any kind of money or status in life and you're any kind of good looks, in other words, you're somewhat in shape and a gentleman, then you probably can get a date and have dates with various women and get married and have a relationship. Okay? That's just what's so. And ladies, I'm sorry, it's unfair like that, but if you're a guy that has any kind of money and status, you're going to have women that are going to be interested in you. ladies, your job is to I'm going to say use, yes. You've been gifted with something that is very, very valuable to men and to society in general. And that is that you have beauty, youth, if that is still the case, and if we're talking about dating, for the most part, we're talking about youth. And you have the ability to create life within your very body and to nourish life with your body. I mean, you come with all of this equipment that is extremely valuable and very, very attractive, and I don't just mean sexually. It's attractive because of the value you are. These, I kind of kid about all the equipment that women come with, because they, you've got those fingernails and that hair and those eyes and that body and all of the jewelry and stuff that women adorn themselves with to make themselves look fantastic, so that men who are attracted through the eyes want to look at you, how you move. We want to be close to you. Men will want to touch you. Men will want to be around you and be in your presence and serve you and do things to be able to be in your good favor. So you really have a huge advantage in that sense. You have a huge advantage in that sense. However, what I'm seeing today is that a lot of people, a lot of women, young women, are sort of throwing that under the bus, so to speak. They're putting it all out there in such a way that it's kind of cheap and a dime a dozen, so that men are, they can just choose from any one of a number of women who will easily give themselves away. So what has been lost, as far as I can tell, in recent generations, and by recent generations I'm really talking about in the last 40 years. So if you were born anywhere this side of, the 60s, you were born into a generation or generations of women who got the idea through the advent of the birth control pill, which was made public and made available to the public in 1964, I believe, 64 or 62. The birth control pill became widely available to the public, and in that moment, given the sexual norms of the day, women actually began pursuing men. Up until that time, for the most part, men were pursuing women, and it was deemed somewhat socially unacceptable for women to pursue men. Now women begin to pursue men and attempt to play a game, that a dating game, if you will, a mating game that was really, it's really balanced in the men's nature. It's balanced in our biology. In other words, it favors men's biology to be polygamous. It favors men's natural anatomical situation to be able to make love to as many women as possible before he dies. It comes naturally to him. He feels like doing it. He wants to do it. It's a natural expression of something very primordial in a male, is to pursue various women. That's just the way it is. I didn't design it, but I noticed that that's how men are, and it doesn't make it right, it doesn't make it wrong. You just need to notice that that's the human animal part of a man that you're dealing with, ladies. So every human being has a human animal part, and every human male, no matter how much honor, how much integrity, how much of a gentleman he is, how responsible he is, or conscious and aware he is, he also has this part of him that could love this woman and this woman and this woman, and so that's very threatening to women. Gentlemen, that's a very threatening situation for women. And so, ladies, in the last few generations, what's been lost in favor of just being sexy What's been lost has been that amazing ability to communicate both verbally and non-verbally, through your body posture and language, through your boundaries, through what you will and will not accept, what you consider to be acceptable behavior or unacceptable behavior. What's been lost are certain boundaries that are very, very attractive to a man. Ladies, you need to ask yourself, and don't just say, I don't know. Ask yourself like an ongoing question, an ongoing inquiry into the nature of human beings. What is it that would have a man forego all other women in order to spend his life with me? What is it that's missing? What is it that I can bring to the party? What is it that would have him turn his attention away from all of the other women that might be interested in him if he's a successful, good-looking man with resources, and want to spend his life with me? What would have him do that? And how can I, in other words, provide him with a better deal than he can get out there? Because the guys are looking for a meal. Men marry because they got a better deal by staying with you. They got something that they couldn't find out there. And I'm going to say that quality has to do with your ability to communicate, to receive communication, to provide a sensual and safe environment for him to be accepted and respected, for him to be able to communicate easily. And men are not necessarily complex communicators. They like to communicate more through their actions than through their words. But they're looking for somebody that they can connect with, not just have sex with, because they can have. If you got money, you can have sex. If you're a man and you got money, I don't care what you look like, you can have sex, right? So it's not about just having sex. It's about having a sensual, and by sensual I'm pointing at certain things. Textures can be sensual. Smells can be sensual. A particular environment is sensual. In other words, that feeds the senses, that brings him into connection with a more interior part of himself. We could say the feminine part of himself. In other words, that we are attracted to our opposites. Opposites attract, yes, and things that are the same tend to repel. If you start becoming more masculine by having your sexuality be the first thing that he's present to, like you're kind of selling that, hey, look how good I look in my short skirt and my open blouse, and so in other words, if the first thing that comes to mind when we see you is sex, then you have something to do with that. If the first thing that comes to mind when we see you is sensual, pleasurable to see, of course, but we're attracted because we want to learn more. We want to, if everything you got's out in the front window, then the shop window, then there's very little mystery left to you. And I want to tell you something: men are not quite as stupid as they enjoy acting like they are. Okay, we like to. It takes a pretty intelligent person to act stupid, and men are pretty good at it. So we're not as stupid as we act, and we know that if it's too easy, then there's really not much substance left behind all of that. So maybe that's a little bit too complex. What I want to say to women is, you want to dress and behave in a way that is, there's two kinds of women for men, honestly. There's the kind you have sex with, and then there's the kind that you marry. Now, that's kind of good news and bad news for the men. It's kind of like, oh, right, if I marry, I'll probably never have sex again. There's some truth to that, but I'm just kidding, of course. You want to offer a sensual environment that would have him be attracted by being someone. And so for women, it is more of a being thing. You want to notice that with men, I gave them a list, like 5 or 6 things to do. You know, men are doers. Women are beers. The feminine is more about who you are being that is attracting his good actions, is attracting his interests, attracting his resources, attracting his, and then how do you have him come back for more if you are interested in a long-term committed relationship? Yes? So there may be a period of time you need to establish from the very beginning that you are interested in dating for a long-term committed relationship if that's what you're up to. Don't try to fool a guy. Don't say, oh, I just want to have fun, when really in the back of your mind what you're up to is having a partner for marriage in the future. Why? Because later, after, let's say, 2 or 3 months, if you have a relationship with a guy that becomes monogamous and committed, meaning you're not out dating each other people, you're not sleeping with anyone else, and you're having a sensual, connected relationship, whether it involves sex or not, that's a whole nother story. We'll talk about that another time, perhaps. But sexual in the sense that there's an honest exchange of sensual energy between the two of you. There's affection, there's connection, and there is certainly a sexual desire. Whether or not that desire is fulfilled or not kind of depends on your circumstances, your culture, and your age, and a number of things. You know, how I would coach somebody who's been married and divorced and is in their 40s is totally different than somebody who's maybe in their 20s and never had sex before. So it's a totally different story. Don't expect there to be a one-size-fit-all about dating. That's why we have individual counseling sessions. That's why we coach people individually on relationships at Embrace Growth, because not everybody's the same, and they're certainly not the same age with the same priorities. So I'm giving you some general guidelines, and the general guidelines are regardless of what age you are. You want to, if you're a woman, you don't want to give it all away in the very beginning, because it'll be like, thank you, ma'am, and he's on to the next. You want to have some boundaries, and those boundaries are contingent upon certain agreements that you would make in advance. In other words, you don't have sex with somebody and then say, I'm not going to have sex with you anymore until we're engaged. That would be very confusing for a man and probably make him angry. You wouldn't try to, and a lot of women are doing this, and it's not working. You know it's not working. You don't need me to tell you it's not working. Women are attempting to, and it's not your fault, but it's not your fault because you've been taught by Cosmo magazine and all of those Allure and all of the different girly magazines that are teaching you, I look at the covers, in the supermarket on the, 7 sexual secrets that will have him begging for more. Now, I know that these magazines are aimed at single women, and I know that you read them, and I know you try all that stuff. So great for the guys, but get used to being single, ladies. Get used to being single. If you want to try 7 sexual secrets that will have him begging for more, great, but don't expect him to ask you to marry you. Marry him, because there's women that we have sex with and there's women that we marry. And sometimes it's both, but it's rare. Okay? When men have had enough of that great sex, and some men never get enough, okay? You and I both know that there are men that are in their 40s and 50s, they're still bachelors, and they are non-committal, okay? Because they're committed to having great sex all the time and never want to be financially and emotionally and physically responsible for a household. for a woman and whatever children you might have. So you need to establish early on, ladies, what your priorities are. If it's dating for fun, that's fine, especially if you're especially if you're in your early 20s or late teens or something like that, then fine. But there will come a time when you're in your late 20s and early 30s when you start thinking about, I've kind of had enough of this, and I'm at a place in my life where I want to find a mate to spend the rest of my life with, and there's only a certain number of years left in which I can do that and have children if that's what you want to have. So you have a time limit on how long you can play this game. Men do not have a time limit. Okay? They don't have a time limit. Their sense of time is totally different. For ladies, time is moving quickly. For men, I got all the time in the world. So you're not on an equal playing field when it comes to time. In terms of finances, men can keep all of their finances to themselves, and if they can have sex with you and hang on to those finances, then when they're done with that, or if you start to become a big pain for them and insist on getting married and they're not ready or something like that, they can take all of their money and all of their finances and say goodbye, and it still belongs to them. So that's another way that it's an uneven playing field for men and women. Also, men are able to produce sperm for, I don't know, who knows how long, right? Late in life, into their late 60s and 70s, and I'm assuming, and women are born with all of the eggs that they're ever going to have. Those eggs immediately start to age and become less fertile, and over a period of time until they're all released. And so you only have, it's like a bank account that is being spent a little bit every month. So women have only a certain amount of time in which to have children if that's what they're going to do. And even though we're living longer and longer and looking better and better, there's 50 and 60-year-old women now that look like they're 30 or 40. And so our ability to age more slowly and our lifespans are getting longer. However, I don't think anybody, and women are having children after 40 and into even their early 50s now. However, most women would want to have children, men and women, would want to have children in the early to mid part of their life so that they could still be around when their children are adults. Okay? So dating for recreation is totally different than dating for a long-term committed relationship. The rules are different. The priorities are different. The stages of development in those relationships are different. And so it's important to distinguish for yourself, whether you're a man or a woman, is it about romance? Is it about finding a partner or is it about finding a partner to fulfill you for the rest of your life? To have a fulfilling life with. Nobody can fulfill you. And so I want to make that clear. It's not that your partner will fulfill you, but that you can have a fulfilling relationship with for the rest of your life. So first of all, know what you're after. Know why you're dating. Communicate clearly about it. Whether you're a man or a woman, communicate clearly. Listen, if you're a guy and you just want to date and take the girl out and having a good time with her and get to know her, fine. If you want to do that and find out if this is a person that you might eventually want to marry, then say that. There's nothing wrong with saying that. And there's nothing wrong with saying, look, I've been dating for a number of years. I'm thinking about settling down. I'm kind of looking for a girl that might be my wife in the future. There's nothing wrong with saying that. There's nothing wrong with saying that, and there's nothing wrong with saying, if it doesn't work out, hey, listen, it's not working out. You know, you have to deal with that sometimes. You might break somebody's heart, but if it's the truth, I'd rather you break their heart before you marry them and get them pregnant than afterwards, which is what a lot of men are doing. They don't have the guts or the self-discipline or even the self-knowledge to say, hey, you know what, this is not what I want right now. I'm not ready to get married. And they allow themselves to be pushed into a marriage that they're not ready for, that they're not adult enough for. And then when it doesn't work, then they start acting like a kid again. They go and have an affair, or they withdraw and stop treating their wife well, or worse, they start treating her bad, and don't pay attention to the kids. So that's mostly what I see, and the source of it is that the people didn't have a clear-cut, well-communicated, and responsible way of being with each other when they were in the dating stage. Also, I want to point out that we have a number of books and CDs and DVDs all about marriage, all about dating. There's Girl Talk. If you go on embracegrowth.com, on our website, you'll see that there is a tab called Products, and under those products you will find books, CDs, and DVDs. And you'll also find something called gift sets. In other words, there's groupings of various products that kind of go well together that we've put in a package kind of deal so that you can buy a number of things at a discounted rate if you were going to buy several of the things.